Absolutely love it, and I've been riding for 10 years.
We knew that there was something very special about the MT-07.
I can't emphasize enough how enjoyable it is to ride.
This is a 2016 Yamaha MT-07, making it the first generation, and I'm not sure I like it. But the problem is, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything negative about the MT-07, nor have I seen a negative review. Everyone loves them. So obviously, I don't want to be the first person to say something bad about it. That would look bad. But even as a Yamaha fanboy and self-appointed MT-09 aficionado, I'm not sure I feel the same way about the 07. I think I've been lied to. So today I'm going to try to explain to you why I'm not the biggest MT-07 fan, while also trying not to be rude about it so I don't offend anyone, which is hard for me. On the surface, it's very easy to assume why I don't like the MT-07.
I've had 3 MT-09s in the past and currently have an R1 too.
So it's just slow and I'm a shallow and I've deemed it unworthy. That's a fair assumption, I'll give you that.
But I rode a KTM 390 Duke for an entire year off the back of having an MT-09 for 6 months and a 2013 R1 for a year before that. And I've got nothing but nice things to say about 390 Dukes.
I think it's the most adorable bike I've ever owned.
So horsepower isn't the only problem here.
First, I should probably tell you how I ended up with an MT-07 in the first place, because it's a rather random choice for me and was a bit of a spur-of-the-moment purchase.
It all began because at the start of 2024, I felt pretty confused about bikes and my YouTube channel.
At the time, I had my Yamaha MT-09 and Yamaha YZ250F. You see, I'd spent the last year devoting my life to motocross. I'd work all week so I could afford to go to the track on the weekend. I tried to get all my work done so I had time for the track. The only reason I'd exercise was to be fitter for motocross. And I'd spend every weekend trying to get better at riding an MX bike. And I did actually get a lot better within that year. And it was the most passionate I'd been about anything in years. In fact, I did my first ever race and enjoyed it so much that I planned to do more.
But then, just 2 weeks after my first race, I ended up in hospital with a broken ankle, broken ribs, and scariest of all, a fractured vertebra in my spine, all due to motocross.
So I started 2024 getting the movement back in my ankle to walk again after being on the couch recovering for 2 months.
The weirdest part was that the entire time I was recovering, I had every intention of riding motocross again. But then when the time came that I could actually ride again, I had just about no interest in riding motocross anymore. I think some of that was because when I don't do something for months on end, I lose interest in it. But most of all, I think that it was my brain trying to subconsciously protect me. When you've just been injured, there's a part of you that feels really fragile and scared to get injured again.
It really upset me to see my MX bike just sitting there and not getting ridden, so I decided to sell it. I figured if I wanted to ride motocross again, I'd buy another one when the time came.
And that was why I felt confused at the start of 2024. I'd spent just about every weekend at the track for the last year, and now I had all this free time on weekends and no purpose. It was at this point that I decided to switch to touring. I figured I could still ride every Sunday, but on the street. I could tour the country with my girlfriend, and it would be perfect to get content for this channel.
So I bought a BMW R1200 GS, and a few days later, I sold my Yamaha MT-09. There wasn't anything wrong with it, and I wasn't bored of it either. It was the perfect bike, hence why I'd had it for 2 years, but I convinced myself that I needed a change.
I now regret getting rid of that bike, but it made sense to me at the time.
So off with my girlfriend I went on our first ever trip on a motorcycle. I was super excited about this, the start of me making motorcycle touring videos, and I could already picture all the beautiful places we could go and the millions of views I could get on YouTube.
But only 90 minutes in, I'd already worked out that touring was not for me. it's uncomfortable, and I don't have an attention span. Don't get me wrong, there were plenty of enjoyable moments, and I do want to do it again at some point, just not often enough to make a whole channel about it.
Riding for anything more than about an hour is too much for me. I think that's why the track suits me so well, because you do 5 or 6 20-minute sessions. You get a break in between and always have a goal to focus on. With touring, you can be staring at the same straight road for an hour while doing the speed limit, and that's just not enjoyable for me.
Before that trip, I was shopping for a BMW S1000 XR because I was aware that I needed something fast, but I wanted to double down on touring.
So I had sold my 2 favorite bikes in the world and bought a GS that I didn't end up liking.
It was a low point. But fortunately, that was when my X-Track Yamaha R1 popped up for sale. I've been convincing myself for years that superbikes are unnecessary on the road because they're just too fast. But at that point, I really needed something fun that would keep me busy, so I bought it.
But throughout that project of turning it back into a street bike, I wasn't completely irrational.
I still knew that an R1 is not an ideal daily rider.
They're kind of uncomfortable, ridiculously fast, overheating traffic, and it just doesn't seem fair to ride a bike destined for the track as a grocery getter.
Which is why I bought this MT-07. I decided that I needed a cheap and cheerful daily rider so that the R1 only has to come out when I will appreciate it most. But I also didn't want too much money tied up in a daily rider.
Hence the slightly older MT-07, but it's in great condition with only 12,000 kilometers on it, an elegant Acra slip-on, which is conveniently my kitten's name too, and wheels that are permanently dirty.
I thought it would tick all the boxes.
I love Yamaha. I fancied a comfortable naked bike with an engine that's not too small. Sounds nice, and I've always wanted to give one a try.
Honestly, I thought about getting another 390 Duke because I enjoyed mine so much and I don't ride on the highway much anyway. But I decided that I've done that before, so I wanted to try something new. But in the 4 weeks that I've had the MT-07, I've ridden it for just 3 days. Every other day I've been riding the R1 because it's just so much fun.
Obviously, the R1 is still new to me, so the novelty hasn't worn off yet. But the MT-07 is also new to me, but just isn't what I expected.
So the MT-07 has definitely been something new for me, but it's not the only new thing that I've been trying recently. I've also been trying this ring from Gentle Bands. It's new for me because I'm not usually a jewelry type of guy, but that's kind of their philosophy. They want to get rid of the generic, boring bands and replace it with something more suitable to your personality and full of craftsmanship, so that you're proud to wear it, whether it was a meaningful gift, a symbol of love and commitment, or just an accessory.
This is my new ring called the Hobgoblin. It's forged out of tungsten and has this rugged texture.
It needs to be, since tungsten is one of the world's most enduring metals.
Then it has this captivating blue opal inlay, also known as the Cupid stone.
So I assume it will keep your partner in love with you too. But the best part is that they know why I don't usually wear rings.
Because as a biker, I wear gloves and get my hands dirty in the garage all the time, so rings just get in the way. But they have a solution. They offer a matching chain, so you can keep this important symbol on you at all times without it getting in the way or getting damaged. I guarantee there's a ring that will appeal to you, between their Damascus steel options, whiskey barrel options, or lightweight carbon fiber for us carbon-crazed bikers, to name just a few.
Currently, they're also offering free engraving, so get 25% off with the code CHAOSCAUSES and follow the link down below to see all of their unique designs.
I actually rode an MT-07 around the block once about 5 years ago, and I didn't really like it then. But I figured I just hadn't spent enough time on it. But now I'm sure.
So let me try to explain it without offending anyone. This is its frame. It's a steel tubular frame, and unlike KTM, Yamaha do their best work with aluminium twin spar frames. That's probably why they've put this cover here over the top of it that looks like an aluminium twin spar frame, because you've got to dress for the job you want, not the job you have. These are its handlebars. They have a really big sweep to them and are rolled back in the clamps quite far, bringing them closer to the rider. On a completely unrelated note, I love how sporty naked bikes have wide and straight handlebars, giving you more leverage and really allowing you to get on top of the forks while steering. Did you know that the bar risers on this bike seem to be made from this weird plastic composite material instead of solid metal to absorb any vibrations from getting to the handlebars? And a great byproduct of this is that if you were to give the bike, say, incorrect inputs, a lot of that input wouldn't even make it to the front wheel because it would be absorbed by these risers. Absolutely brilliant. These are the brake calipers. They're axially mounted to the bike. Nice bikes might try to convince you that radially mounted calipers are better, but what do they know? You might also notice that there are in fact 2 brake calipers and discs up here because the MT-07 is very fast. Now, this is incredible forward thinking from Yamaha because you could probably sell both of these brake calipers and discs for enough money to be able to buy one decent brake caliper that isn't stabby. Incredible. These are the forks. If you look closely, you'll notice that they're right way up forks so that you don't end up upside down. That is Yamaha thinking ahead for you.
So thanks to the combination of those lightweight forks, steel tubular frame, plentiful brake calipers, and ergonomic handlebars that get rid of uncomfortable vibrations, you're left with a bike that doesn't handle in a way that can be construed as fun, so you don't end up speeding and getting arrested. That is a win-win scenario.
You can probably tell I'm a Yamaha fanboy by just how positive I'm being about the MT-07. I'm struggling to shake my sarcastic voice here, but for real.
I've had an R6, 3 MT-09s, 2 R1s, a YZ250, a YZ250F, a YZ450F, and most importantly, a PW80, which is where my fanboyness all started.
And no, I'm not that much of a crackpot. I'm aware that the MT-07 is a great beginner bike, a very good commuter bike, and most of all, a budget bike. That is what influenced all of Yamaha's decisions, of course. So let me tell you what I hate about KTM, for example, so you can see just how positive I really am about the MT-07.
I hate the way that when you look at KTM's Duke range, whether you want the 125, 390, 990 or 1390, you always get upside down forks. You always get radially mounted brake calipers, and you always get a sporty riding position that makes you feel ready to race.
I mean, yes, KTMs cost more for this very reason, and the orientation of your forks doesn't really matter. But the point is, the KTM carry the same philosophy of riding position, componentry, and just overall attitude throughout their range, and it's ridiculous.
Yamaha has a much more logical order here. The MT-125 and MT-03 have upside down forks, then the MT-07 doesn't, and then the MT-09 and MT-10 have upside down forks once again.
No bike deserves the MT name more than the 07.
Okay, so you might be starting to catch on that I don't like the MT-07, but it's just because I feel as though it was falsely advertised. I love MT-09s, and I assumed the MT-07 would have the same philosophy, but it doesn't, and it's really disappointed me as a result.
This isn't a bad bike, just a bad MT in my opinion. It without a doubt has a spot in the market, like the SV650 for example, but it either needs to get on board with the MT approach or get a new name.
Even Suzuki knew that their new GSX 8S with radially mounted brake calipers and USD forks couldn't be called an SV, so they gave their bike with a new philosophy a new name. So smart.
I really did want a sporty naked bike with this displacement, and this has opened my eyes as to how manufacturers approach an entire range of bikes. Ultimately, my disappointment could easily have been avoided if I had just read the spec sheet beforehand. This is a classic case of when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Mostly me. The best part is that there are manufacturers out there who think sporty bikes are as important as I do. There's a manufacturer for everyone and every way of thinking. And that is why we love bikes. But anyway, that has been what's bothering me for the last few weeks, and I wanted to get it off my chest. I'd love to hear your opinions on my crazy ramblings, and I'll see you on the next ride.